Hey everybody, I'm back again. I think so. Let's try to see that everything is okay. I was actually meant to start this streaming earlier, but I was really tired because I've not been getting rest. I've been working quite a lot, so I decided to just like chill a bit and give myself a break. But here I am, back again, doing the stream. Thanks again for joining. If you're joining from anywhere, and we ran into some issues yesterday. I think I finally understand why that might be, and actually, that gave me some time to rethink what the approach we were going with that part. And now I'm back. I didn't really get to do much after that. It might be a little bit dark, and I probably could make this better late, but let's keep it natural. Um, So yesterday, really, the main problem was, I believe, um, what were we working on yesterday? Oh, yeah, it was this part. And the biggest problem really is, like, let's say we're trying to, let's just go here. You, if you joined the stream yesterday, you would understand that all these commands work, right? But now it's gonna tell us that it's unable to detect the argument in it, right? And I'll tell you what the issue is, at least. Then I can tell you why that's not even a good approach and why we should rethink it. And that's one thing I also love about Rust. If your approach is not working, you're probably doing something suboptimal. So that's in it, right? It says it's not found. And the reason we're getting that really is because of this runtime config defaults. And if you really check runtime itself is is it like it's got its own parser macro, and I believe that is what is causing like collision with CLI parsing. One thing I haven't actually tried is if you do the instantiation normally, if it's gonna work. I've not tried that, and that might be worth something. let's try. So let's do. You see, it's got parse also, so you can parse argument for it. But let's use like let's just build it. And the other thing we really need to provide is, do we even need to provide anything? Can we just build it right away? Missing a few URL. Okay, we need to provide URL. I'm not sure. Let's just put URL. Let's say we're using the memory. Does it take URL DB? So let's do URL DB. We do memory. And let's just build that. Let's try again. That's not the approach I'm looking to go for, but I just wanted us to try that and see where we are headed from there. See what we get. In the meantime, let me quickly see how things look here. Are we live? Okay, yeah, we are. Let's just mute that. Okay, so as you can see, it actually works if we initialize it normally. So calling default probably triggers yeah, calling default is like it triggers some kind of like bad behavior with the parser. It interferes with the CLI parser, and I had the hunch that it was gonna work. Okay, so but still this is not actually ideal, because when we're doing this, when we're setting up the DB and we are passing the runtime config into it, it's quite deceitful, because the runtime config actually comes from the CLI. If we go here, I'm still looking to put it at the top level, we go to sub command. For each of the commands, we've got the runtime config. For init, you can see on on this line we've got the runtime config. If we go to another sub command, let's say we go to down, on this line you can see the runtime config. Let me zoom in a little bit. So you can, and eventually what we do if you go to the implementation is we end up overriding it. So if you always override it, then it actually is suboptimal for us to always set the default here when we know we never use the default. We never, like, it's not the case that we don't use the default runtime configuration, but we never use this default value from here. So why instantiate this at all, right? So this actually started getting me to think maybe a little bit from like the root of the problem, what we're trying to solve. But the main idea is we want all the commands to return the database instance, right? So if we focus on that, like just thinking about it from a little bit from first principle, if we focus on the fact that we want them to all return the database instance that they've like created or instantiated, then why don't we just create a trait, right? So let's say here we create a trait system, or I can just interface, let's call it shared interface or trait, and let's call these traits command, or command runnable. I mean, pretty much all the commands are runnable, right? So let's just do that chill first, and let's export. So we've got shared traits. I probably prefer shared traits. I didn't make that public, so let's go back. Okay, it's public now, so let's just call that command, and why don't we just have a DB that just returns the database instance, right? Why don't we focus on that? And then this just return. No, that should be any engine. Yep. So if we have something like this, and let's say we go to, probably want to do it first with generate. So we want generate to basically return, let's do, maybe bring this down a little bit, implement command for what's this called? Isn't it generic? Yep, that's what we want to do. So basically, yeah, we just want to return this. Yeah, that's what we want to do. And yeah, we can put in a to do in the meantime, right? And we start to see what I'm trying to achieve here, maybe. So basically I want to return the DB instance, right? And how can we get it? The generate command itself doesn't actually instantiate the database. It uses, because it doesn't need one if you don't need to run. As you can see, if we go everywhere here, you see that we're not using any database instance. If you can look at all the implementation, and maybe I can clean this part up a little bit. Clean that up. Yeah, we're not using the database instance anyway. The only part that actually does use the database instance is run command. When you go here, you see we're using the database. We are cloning it. Of course, this is like a reference counting clone, atomic reference counting. So then you're gonna ask, how are we gonna then get the database instance for generate? Well, this is the idea that I have. Why don't we just do something like, say we have another associated function called initialize up, or get up. I don't know if that makes sense. Command. Thank you. But because I tend not to trust Copilot, or like I don't want to have to. Why don't we just copy it since we've got it? Because it might slip in bug into our code. So we don't have to run it. Yeah, we just need to pretty much just do this, right? Yep, so this gives us up. Oh, we can just do up. So rather than doing this here, we can just do up equals self dot up, and then we can actually just do self dot up dot run. Right now we're passing setup, but we're gonna have to like take that off actually. So let's take that off first. Take that. Actually, why don't I just do something like that, in which case we don't even need to do this anymore. And as for this, then you start to think, yeah, couldn't we just do up, and yeah, we get DB. Right now there's no DB because we are yet to implement that, right? But we can. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. So we can do implement create command for hub. Thank you. But actually that's not exactly what we need here. We just need, right now, when you go to settings, where are we? You go to setup rather. Let's go to setup. This is the way we're initializing it. I guess we can still use that. And you know what? We're gonna improve on this part also. But for now, let's just focus on right now we shouldn't duplicate that state for runtime configuration, and this shouldn't be done. So it shouldn't be done. What else? Take that off. Take that off. So pretty much we don't even need setup DB. We can just instantiate it, right? But whatever. What do you think? Yeah, but whatever. Let's leave it that way for now. So setup DB new blah blah blah. So we can still utilize this. We don't have to take it all off. And let's go to this part. Right now we are passing setup here. We really don't need this. And I'm gonna remove that from here also, and which means we're gonna have to take that away. We're gonna have to come back to all this anyway. But if we go back to up, let's go, what's that? So we're doing some whatever here, but we don't actually have to do that. Since we've implemented, actually here we should be passing db and db. This is what we should be doing. Let's make it to do there first. And now that we have that, how about we go here? We don't really need to do anything there anymore. We don't need all this. We can just do self.db, and that gives us that. And yep, we can pretty much remove that, and let's just pass. Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it simple. So what do we need to do here? We could use setup, and actually for setup, we are, so here's the thing. Are we trying to with that? We actually don't. We could just make this the new, because right here we're just trying to return the database instance. I mean, we could return self and get a db. This is what I mean. We could do something like this, new, and then this return self, and this we can do something like this, then get a db. But that's a little bit of like an indirection that I don't think is necessary. So for now, let's just use set db. So we can do setup db, and so return db clone. Oh, this has to be an asynchronous. So this has to be async, in which case we might have to use the async trait. I don't know if that has been stabilized actually. So there are two things that come to mind. We could use like the async trait, or if we want to circumvent that, something else we could do is, this returns setup db itself, but that is also asynchronous. So we would have to probably use that anyway. So let's do await, and then we would have to do async. I'm not sure we're importing that yet. Okay, let's do that. Is it an underscore? Oh, okay, we already have it actually. Async trait. So we've got the trait, and we can actually should be on the trait itself, because we need to mark this as a sync. So I will still never find what I need, 'cause the feeling I feel and DB. Okay. So yeah, we need to await that, and let's do this. Don't do this. Since this is not async, but functions in trait cannot be declared async. Not currently supported. I know that, and that's why I'm using the async trait. Am I missing something? Lifetimes and implementing a match this method in traits. This band may be missing. Share text ownership, so which moves it? I mean, okay. Maybe missing. Let's put that here. We're using it for generate also. So this. Functions and traits cannot be declared async and not currently supported, but am I missing something? That's what the async trait is meant to be, is meant to do. I mean, technically I can do this directly on the stuff, but I think using the trait system here would be more probably nicer. The functions why? That's weird to me. Let's remove that first. Cannot be declared a sync. Why not? There's no way I need to do something like this. Let me see. Let's check the sync create sync. Async trait. Okay. Oh, I need to also mark the implementation, and I actually did previously. I just kind of like took it off. Yep. It's not in the scope. Yep. Okay. Actually, had this. I was quite sure the implementation also needed it, but I took it off anyway. So let's go to up and great. So now we're returning an instance, just returning a clone so we know we're returning the same instance. And for generate, pretty much we're just returning the instance from up, and we can let's go to setup, just remove that. The only place we're using that really is here, and we can just do self.db instead. And actually we don't even need that. We just need to do self.up, because we're trying to run up, and up has access to its instance, and just run. Yeah, then await that. We don't need to return the database instance anymore because we have that covered. The remove this semicolon to return this value. I'm not trying to return it, am I? Okay, so now we don't need this anymore. We don't need to return anything anymore. Really, we don't need this anymore either. And even for the prompter, is there a better way? Could we? I wonder if clap has something like I don't know, prompter where you could do like, let's say PRP and prompter. Well, then we would have to use generics. I don't want to have to do that there. So let's leave that on way. Anyway, I mean, using generic is not that bad, but I'd like to confirm first. Let's call it real prompter. Can I do like clap and skip? Oh, it doesn't support. It needs a default because okay, yes, come on. Let's put the default there. And okay, it looks like it actually does support skipping. So that might be a thing, but let's keep that for now. We can use that to our advantage later. So what we're gonna do, basically, I think this is gonna solve all our problems, and it's also gonna improve the code quality dramatically, actually. So we've got like generate settled. So let's go to up. We've got up also pretty much settled, kind of. Then we've got we can pretty much like copy this, and let's go to maybe down next. Maybe are you down. Let's copy that. And what else? So now this is gonna be down. And we're gonna remove that. We're just gonna do self db because we can do that. Oh, maybe it's not called runtime config. Yeah, we should update that and call that runtime config just for consistency. And then if we've got that, so why this should be db no method name db found for these blah 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 down, but there is and it's here. Oh, we needed to import that trait. I mean, we can probably just keep it this way. Yep, that's a thing. So let's await that. You guys can see me. So we've got that done for down. I really love the trait system. For initialize, let's just do the same. Let's call init, right? Let's import that. And you know what? It would have been a different thing if we had like get runtime config. Sure, should we? Because if we can have that, then I think that would actually be nice. So let's do something like, let's go function. No. Runtime. And I'll tell you why I'm doing that. Runtime configuration. Because with that we can just pretty much have a default implementation, and it's a lot more robust and just better, I think. So if we go with that, then we can pretty much just take that, because that's what we're doing for the most part. I want that to be consistent, except in the edge case situation. So with that, for init, really we actually gain it from up. So what we can do here for, I think we're gonna be doing the same thing for init and generate, or should we keep it as is? So the implementation is clear. Otherwise, my fear is that, for example, for initialize is pretty much using the runtime configuration and passing it up to like up. Other than that, you don't really need the runtime configuration for initializing and generating. Those are done in memory. But it passes it on to like up, in case you want to run the migration that has been created when you're initializing or when you're generating. That's the only reason. And in which case, my fear is that if we then use this approach, I mean, I'm doing it right now, but if someone else is working on it, and they do like, okay, runtime config, they pass in the runtime configuration, they do something like this, and they don't actually implement this, it's gonna be a little bit problematic because they are not inheriting from the up database instance, or maybe that's not big of a problem as I might be thinking, but anyway, we'll see. So in this kind of situation, for example, because we need this also, let's import that. Basically what we want to do is let's put in another method here and call it up. Thank you. But I'm still gonna copy this because I don't want to rely on Copilot for that, because it could slip in bug into the code. So up, and then if we go back to this part, we can do self.up.run, and in which case we can take this off and we actually don't need setup anymore. And yeah, we can remove the setup. Oh, we don't need all this anymore. We actually don't need to return that anymore, and we don't need to do that on 24 either. However, we don't want to create a new setup because we want that, I mean, we don't want to create a new database instance. When we do this, it's a different instance. So even if we return this, we are not going to be able to assert, like let's say we're writing our test and we're asserting on, or we select something from the database and we're trying to get it back. And in this case, we're using in-memory database, right? This is going to be running on a different process, right? And if you try to, like, this run, for example, if we go to run for up, right? It has its own separate database instance that might have been instantiated here. So in this case, if you're not careful, you're going to have like 2 database instances. And when you're asserting on those 2, now you have like duplicate instances, like duplicate states. So this might actually, if someone else is working on this code base down the lane and a test is failing, they don't know why, they wouldn't understand that within this init or generate function, we actually have 2 database instances. One that has been initialized by init, from which it's init, from up rather. Yeah. So this is, let's go to generate, for example. It has up configuration. This is when you're doing like cargo generate. If you don't pass the command run, then it doesn't need to even create a separate instance or run any instance. It just does everything internally to generate the file, right? But when you pass in the flag run, you're telling it that every file that you've generated, the 2 or 1 file that you might have generated, run it against this database instance with the configuration that I've passed in, right? So if you're inheriting from up, we actually want the database instance from up, right? Not instantiate a new one here. And that's why we're doing this here. It's asking for runtime configuration. And I mean, we can pass runtime configuration, but as you can see, it's actually useless here. We don't need runtime configuration. So I might gravitate back towards the other approach. The benefit of this is we might have been able to implement a default, but then not everything actually needs this. In this case, command doesn't need it, and it might lead to confusion that why we're doing this, but we don't actually need this, right? So I'll gravitate back towards just not having a default implementation, so you are forced to implement it. Since we have the setup class anyway, the setup struct, it shouldn't be much of a hassle to implement. It's just like a line or something. So yeah, we're inheriting from that. If we go to init also, we don't we shouldn't be doing this anymore. So let's just take that away, and now we're forced to like implement this. And probably, let's see, we can do this. Yep, so it's like a one-liner now. And if we go back to generate, the problem with this is you shouldn't reinitialize it. What you want to do is actually do self.up.db, get the database instance from up, and not instantiate a separate one. So we'll go to list, we do implement command for list, and let's see, for list it has its own database instance, so we can just do async trade, bam 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 bam, and that's fine. Let's do a one-liner here. It's complaining because I'm sure we add some useless stuff. Let's remove that. So this can now be self.db. Of course, we need to await that. So now we have that. We don't need this db setup anymore. Yep, that looks good to me. I would like us to use the one-liner here also, so it's easy to copy paste. Of course, remove that. Let's just copy that. So we're left with prune. In the case of prune, actually it does have this, so we can do async trade, bam 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 bam, implement command for prune. Okay, yep, does have these, and this self. Oh wait, remove that. We don't need the db setup anymore. Yep, we don't need that anymore. So prune is also done. And you know what? How about resets? So as you can see, we're passing this from initialize. Initialize is inheriting from up. So we can just, let's copy that first. Let's take that. So let's, import these, and this is reset, right? And rather than do this, we actually let's create an associated function called get. Oh, let's call it init command so it's clear. Thank you. But I don't want to trust that either. So what we're gonna do is just go up there. Let's just cut all that, and let's come place that. We can remove that, bam bam, and yep. So we've got init right now, and what we're gonna do is first let's go up there, and we call it init command, and that can run this. We don't need a setup there anymore. We can remove setup. It's good. As for the DB, we actually want to inherit from the init. So how do we do that? We just do self.init command and get a DB, and init itself gets from up. So we might need to remove one more stuff here. So let's remove the DB setup. Yep. And yeah, where we're doing this, we don't even need to return this anymore. We don't need that. Bam, bam. Yep, easy peasy. And let's check for prune. I was still returning. Actually, for prune, we don't even need to return that anymore. So let's take that off. Yep. For mod, let's go here now. Let's remove that. And now we can simplify things quite a bit. So let's just remove that. And how about for that? Remove. So, but you know what? Let's do this. Then we can do dot db. Alternatively, you know, I'm thinking we can actually, let's see, we'll see. Where we go here, you know, I'm thinking we could even do like db. Yeah, it has to be a sync. Yep. Can't we just do that? In which case we really don't. We could leave this simply as this. Expected one argument for run. Oh, I see. We need to remove this, and also really don't have to return anything here anymore. It's just like let's simplify things a little bit. So incompatible, that's okay. Okay, this still returns. We don't have to anymore. This still probably returns something, but we don't have to anymore. Yep. So, you know, we could just do, actually, we could do, now that we've got that, we could do the db. Oh, wait. It's been partially moved. Yeah, of course. So let's see, we can actually borrow it here. So that's something we can do, I think, and return it. I think this is just more robust, it's more consistent, and it's less brittle. So let's see, let's go to migration test. I mean, we don't need to set up here anymore, which is great. So what we can do essentially is, let me make returning TP instance from command request. Okay. The other stuff I would like to improve a little bit is when we're talking about prompter, I'm going to show you what I mean now. So right now we've got prompter, right? We've got the trait, we've got read prompter, and we use the default, right? We're using true, mock prompter, and false. I think it's a little bit redundant. What we could do instead is maybe I'll just mock prompter, in which case we can just like pretty much just remove false, and this can now have like configuration. You can imagine we can even use this for like multiple cases, like confirmation is one, and yep, I mean, so confirmation true, and this we just do self.confirmation. I don't want to use like the new, then like we would have to create a wrap-up pattern again around that. So are we using the mock prompter already? I believe we might be using it somewhere. Yeah, we can just clean that up, remove that. Yep, I think let's check the CLI interface. Okay, we've got the mock prompter here, and what we can do, confirmation, Rust analyzer, confirmation true. So we don't even need to, I mean, if we need the false, we could just do this, take that, remove that. So we can call these, I mean, let's just call that this. I need that for now. Let's call it mock prompter. Yep. So we can remove that. Right. Sounds good. Let's look at generate. Complain about mock prompter. Make changes to generate. Let's go back. Okay. So yep, it's called mock prompter now. Let's test, and there we can just do confirmation. Yep. Where else? Yep. Have we got more? Yep. So that's probably okay. Real prompter doesn't really need an argument, or like you can keep it that way. Let's say consolidate mock prompters. Yep. Yippee. Great. So now we're getting to a very good spot. If we go to CLI interface, we've got like, we can remove the setup here. We don't need that. Now when we run our migration CLI function, we can interact directly with the database. If you look at the previous implementation, we were using the CLI, and while I will still retain some of this is a little bit like problematic. It's more difficult to test. I'm testing some functionalities, but you can't really do as much because when you're doing from the command line, really, you cannot use an in-memory database, because if we initialize or instantiate a new a database in memory here, and we run this command, there are like two database instances running within separate processes, right? I mean, we can get around that, which I am doing using term there. So we can use like the file-based database, right? File path. However, that's limited because when you're doing concurrent writes, it's more problematic. You run into different issues. So you can, because when you're doing like asynchronous reads and writes, then it's more difficult to work with term there. So I'm only doing limited testing, but still doing some like end-to-end testing, so we can test the CLI API, right? And you can see we can come back to this. I already have some tests for this. I did update some of these. We can do even more. But with the CLI interface, now we have the DB or the database instances that are being used by all the commands themselves, which means we can do something like carry out a function and test if, for example, we can maybe run some migrations and check the database instance and see if those migrations have actually been created. That's the beauty of this. So the first thing we're gonna do actually, so let's call this test, should we call it init without run. So we can start with that and return. We need to return select. This gives us that. Okay. I kind of like having that open. So now we have all our configurations. We have the shared configurations across all. We have the runtime configuration. We're using in-memory database. The commands, this is very robust integrated test because the commands are still taking care of initializing the database, right? We are only passing the in-memory database. And I mean, we can pass a WebSocket based URL, whatever. If we go here right now, you're gonna see other forms you can have. You know, you could have a local WebSocket, remote, HTTP, HTTPS, in memory, file based, IndexedDB, TypeKV. TypeKV is a distributed database. You know, it supports transaction, right? And it uses, I've forgotten this. We've got Paxos. And we've got, what's the second one? If someone can remind me. This algorithm for, this should be all backend. This other common one, Foundation DB, also uses the same, I believe, similar algorithm. Anyway, so we got the runtime configuration, and we're saying we're using memory based, all the shared configuration, right? And this. So what I'm gonna do right now is actually go to this, and what we're gonna borrow from this, I'll show you. Rather than writing to our local migration directory, which might be a bit brittle, what we can actually do is take the term there. Let's copy this, right? We can go to the CLI interface. Let's paste that in, right? So suddenly we have a place where we can read and write our migrations for, rather than writing it locally here and having to delete and, you know, interfering with the local stuff. So rather than doing these for the migration there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass in temp test migration there, right? That's a path buff. And you know what I'm actually thinking? Why don't we just pass in path buff here? Like, this should be taking path buff and not yeah, no, we might have to do a lot of changes. But let's see if it's gonna be much of a headache. Yeah, we shouldn't be passing string here. The right thing to do is pass in a path or path buff. So custom path, let's just pass in a path buff here. Is that all? Is that all? It can be. There should be more. Anyway, so that seems more robust to me. We get the directory, we create one, so we don't have to create a local file and start messing up with it. And after that, we create our migration there. We call it migration tests. What else? Then we read from it. Let's comment that out first, or let's leave it. Test migration. Okay, migration name, I guess we can just call this, we can use this and paste this. Yep. So this way we are in control of all the configuration programmatically rather than using the CLI, and we're able to test a lot more. For example, we can change the migration name, we can use the defaults and see what happens. We can set the verbosity level, or what else? We can change the migration name, we can set this to false and see what happens. We can change if it should run or not, see what happens, and assert. So actually the first one will be test init run, init without run, and also test init or let's say up only init without run, right? So this would then be reversible false, aka when false it's up only or one way or unidirectional. Yep. And another thing we can do is, I have created these two resources. Basically, you can think of resources as the metadata that like extracted from your like code base, right? And I've created like a 2 version. So if you look at v2 uses, so I could show you, this is like v1. I probably should rename that to v1, v2. Let's move this closer so you can sort of like see. So you just use this macro which I've created called create table resources, right? And what you're going to notice, the difference you're going to notice from v1 and v2 is they both have crop, same, like nothing has changed in other parts. But one thing that has changed is, for example, animal has changed. So if you look at animal v1, let's go to animal v1. You're going to notice that we've got, let's make them side by side. Let's remove that. Let's check animal v2. The difference is that right here, first, this is also something else I've come up with. For you to rename something, you just pass in the old name and it's gonna know that it's a rename. Alternatively, if you're just changing a single field, even without passing that attribute, it's smart enough to know that you're trying to do a rename. So when you run your migration to generate or do something, it's actually gonna prompt you if you're trying to delete the old field and create a completely new field. There's a nuance difference here. If you're trying to do a rename, you're actually trying to migrate the data itself. If you just delete the old one and create a new one, you're going to lose the old data. So it's going to prompt you, are you trying to delete the old data and create a completely new field? And if you're not, if you're doing a rename, then it's going to do the copying of the data, basically just assigning like that before it deletes the old column, right? But if you want to do it explicitly, you're going to use this old name attributes, right? So it's going to know that you're trying to rename this attributes to characteristics. Then the second thing you're going to notice is for v2, we removed created at and updated at, right? That's one. And for the second one, we've also got, let's see, planet and planet v2, and we also have a new class called new stuff, right? So if we go to planet v2 on the other side and we go to planet on this side, let's try to see the difference. So id, first name, so first name has now been changed to like new name. And mind you, one interesting thing also, if this field doesn't exist in the old field and you run the command, it's going to tell you that the field you're trying to rename doesn't exist. I can make this at compile time. I can make something work, but I thought like it's actually doing that is not a good it's not the right way. Like, let's just do this at runtime. So if you, for example, pass in a field that doesn't exist, it's going to tell you that this field you're trying to rename doesn't exist at all, or it has failed. So that's a scenario we can also test. So we're renaming first name to new name, and I believe that's probably all. Then in addition, we have like new stuff, struct, new structs with all these fields. So how about we go to CLI interface? The first thing we're trying to do is just test. We're initializing. So when we initialize, there are multiple assertions we might want to check. We want to check that new files have been created. In this case, one would be created because we're doing up only. Then if we pass in the flag to run it, without run, it's without run, so let's make this false. So we're gonna also have an assertion here that when we select, there should be no migration in the database because we've not run anything. So you can start to see this. We can even have like, rather than calling this CLI interface, we can call this CLI init, or just call it init, really, because we're testing. Personalizer is doing some stuff. Yeah. Anyway, let's wait for personalizer to do its thing first. Then we can proceed. This is still loading, looks like it, but you can start to see the benefit of this. We have a lot more granular control. We have access to the same database instance. We can do much more assertions. So this is how to make your code more testable. I've shown you like multiple techniques. One technique I showed you is using the trait system. So rather than like, that's sort of like a mock, right? But this gives you a lot more flexibility because you can control in the mock, you can control what they return, right? And in the end-to-end, if you want to do something a little bit more end-to-end, then you're gonna have to interact with the CLI itself. So you're gonna have to send true or false. It makes it more complex. So you just have to decide what your trade-offs are. And I do have tests that actually do direct CLI interaction, but in this case I just think returning true or false is totally fine because it's not a very critical thing. So this is how I decide on my trade-off, because when you're saying should, like, if you like run the command cargo generate and there's no diff between the old state and the new state, like you've not changed anything, is it really critical that it's asking you if you want to generate an empty migration file or not? Like, if you'd say true or false, it doesn't really, like, it doesn't ruin anything. So in that case, I think mocking is absolutely sufficient. If you're gonna be having some critical interactions, then maybe mocking is not a good idea. Anyway, Rust Analyzer is still loading, so let's give it some time. It's painful. I just did a little rename. It looks like it's coming alive. Yep. Great. So you know what? Use but so let's forget about the V1 first. We can start to first do the assertion, and the first assertion after running this, we want to assert that of course we have we have 0 because we're not running, right? So there should be none in the database, and it should be none in the database. Then we also want to assert that no, I'm in North America right now. So you also want to assert that WVTT. What else do you want to assert? The second thing you want to assert is if the file directory is empty. So we go like, let's go. Actually, we want to do this twice. So first, before we run anything, we first want to assert there. So let's see, CLI test, read there. So we have something like this, whereby we're reading the directory, and we can borrow from this. So we have the migration files, and we're searching different stuff. I can abstract that into a function later on. So we go over temp test there. Basically what we're doing here. That's cool. You write a giant line of pseudocode. Why do you? So we have migration files, and here we want to assert. Right here, it has to be 0. In which case, maybe doing this doesn't make sense here. But when we go down a little bit, we can then assert that. Because if we read this again, so I'm gonna create a function here, and I'm gonna call it read mag mix from there, and that should return the entry. Let's take the So let's go 10 down, 3 today, the 9 up. Let's take that off. Yep. How's it going today? WVTT. Where are you chatting from? Let's do standard error, right? Okay, path buff. We can just take a reference to path buff. And what else? So let's just take in the path. So object traits object. Oh, is this a trait? Let's check. Latest struct. So what is it talking about? Error. Should be able to so that's actually quite interesting. It takes to error blah blah blah. Let's look at this again. I don't want to navigate into that because that's gonna mess up a little bit. But anyway, what we can actually do is, I'm not sure if I want to do that either. I mean, we can map over that and just what should we do here? Should we just pass in error, or is that even allowed? Generic text to argument. We need to close. Okay. No, since this is a test, I don't think it's worth it. And actually, so this returns a result, and we can just map expect. Yep. So here we can do let migration files. Oh, you're chatting from Nigeria. Oh, that's cool. We're in Nigeria. Nice. We're in Nigeria. My Nigeria people here. So we can do that, and let's just reuse that here because it's easy. Hey, cool. How's Abuja today now? We're in Abuja. So we can do the same thing here. We try to read that migration files, and if we assert this, it should be 1 now. So why don't we just go a step at a time? So let's comment this out first. So migration should be 1 now. This should be 1. And actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna say I'm gonna create a function for this. I'm gonna call it, or why don't I actually just go to migration itself and create this function and call it get all. It's gonna be async, of course. Get all. I'll just say all. Yep. Let's just take that and do migrations. Let's go select. Yep. Then all. And yeah, we can just pretty much say self and self. The database though, yep, we can pass in, let's say SurrealORM. Let's remove that. Any engine. Great. So what do we get from this? We need the returnable select also from here. That trait. Do we have it? So this gives us vec migration because we're unwrapping. And I mean, it depends on us. Do we wanna? We might want to do some assertion, like, but I don't think we're testing the select statement itself now, so that shouldn't be a problem. So migration, I can do SurrealORM results. That should sub that. So I guess it depends on us. Are we testing the migration? Do we want to have to unwrap every time? I don't know, but we can always change that, of course. So let's do init, and rather than doing this now, we could just, we've encapsulated that. We could do migration dot getter. I actually think I'm gravitating towards, you know what, I'll just comment that out and just expect, yeah. Fail to get migrations, but can pretty much, yep. So that case, it simplifies things quite a bit, and we actually don't need that anymore. Yep. So when we assert these the first time, let's take this up here. It would do this the first time. I mean, it should be migration files would be, we can also create a closure just like in line and invoke it, but maybe not that important yet. Don't over abstract. This is gonna be 0 for now, and this is gonna be 0 also. And you know what, we would have to bring this down a little bit. Alright, let's check down. Yep, so we don't even have we don't even have access to the database instance until we invoke it, so we can't do the assertion there yet. So let's only assert that there are no files, and let's run this. Clear cargo run test. Cargo test. Code test init, right? That's what we get. We're doing all this live, and let's see if we fail. Oh, that's cool. Advent of code. Oh, it's code. I thought JOS would be much colder. Yeah, I mean, companies might not be using Rust right now, but the way I work is mostly I don't work based on what's used now. I work based on where things are going direction. So I usually invest more time on where things are going than where things are now. And of course, like I already have like quite an extensive experience with the existing tools. So it's I could work with. I've been working with other languages. So we're getting on line 22. How was the advent of code stuff? In what language did you do it? I've not had time to do that. 22 to, let's see, fail to read path. Interesting. Time there. Join. On line 22, what line is triggering that actually? Oh, I can understand. Fail to read there because the directory doesn't even exist, because it's the CLI that triggers the creation of the directory. Right here the directory doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, so we wouldn't even be able to read from it. Technically we can create the directory ourselves. So let's say we do fs.create there. Thank you. Let's import that. Actually, I'm supposed to go out soon. I kind of had to relax today. So we're getting another error. Let's see. DB serialization, namespace empty. We are not passing in the namespace. Okay. And what line is that happening? All right, man. Have a good one. Have a wonderful sleep. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you for joining in the stream. Migration 219. Failed to get migration. And what line is triggering that? So get probably line 60. So what do you have on line 60? We're trying to get migrations because we expect n is empty. By ns, I'm guessing it means like namespace. Table name, okay, Vic. Is there anywhere else I'm using this? No. Let's check. Nowhere else. So innate I'm gonna log this. Let's print innate. I'll just debug. Let's see. Let's figure it out together. Okay. So I see. Runtime config. Because of the way we're initializing runtime config, we're using the builder. And we're not setting the default, I don't think so, with the builder. Let's check. So if we want that to work with the builder, for example, let's say namespace. This isn't actually what we should be doing. This is problematic. What we should be doing is default value, right? Test. Since we're using the builder, but I would actually argue that we shouldn't be setting the default, because then we're duplicating that. We're already setting with clap, so we shouldn't be doing this at all. I guess scope is optional, so we can probably skip that. We don't want to default, because otherwise it's going to default to none. Otherwise we would have to specify the actual default value. So we would have to do none, bam, 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 bam. Yep. Yeah, that's actually problematic. Oh, now I see why we're having problems with the runtime config the other time. This is how I'm generating the default. Can you imagine that? But I'm glad we actually did, because I should have checked the default implementation. I thought I just used the annotation. Oh my god, this was why. But it was a good thing, because it forced us to rethink the way we were like approaching our stuff. So this, I don't want it to want to. Yep, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do. Can we actually do the default here? No, I think it's, in the meantime, this is just for like quality of life stuff. Let's do this. Since we are keen on using the what's it called, default. I think we can just call it default here. Come to strip. How can we set a default for that is check create not trust. I need to actually did that but derive type builder. Okay, yeah. But let's get to work first. But I'm not quite happy with that. For this is gonna be root, but I'm gonna like after changes root. I would have to absolutely change these. But of course, if you really think about it, it's not even worth it. I don't think it's worth it, because pretty much, yeah, we can do the same thing here and get like a runtime configuration. It's not worth it. I'm gonna take it off. So I should have actually just stashed that change. Let me get it back. I'm gonna stash it. It's in config. Default typed builder value. Oh, not for her. Damn. That was a mistake. Default typed builder value. Why is it stashing everything though? Okay, I'll just commit everything else. Test init command, then default type builder values for runtime. Yep, push that. Push. So that should probably be out. We want to remove that. Remove default. Because otherwise it's gonna default to none. It's gonna use the type default, but we want to actually have some values for that. And this is probably fine, but even here I don't think we need it. Yep, I don't think we do. Yep. let's go back here. Then we'll be forced to do it here, and we can always share. So for DB, it's gonna be test. Namespace is gonna be the same. Namespace. User is gonna be root. It's gonna be root. And scope. I mean, scope could just be none. What's that? Scope. Yeah, we can skip that. What else are we missing? Prime false and mode. Let's just make it explicit so we can strict. By default it's strict though, so I mean that depends on us. Let's leave it first. What else are we missing? Scope. So what's that supposed to be? Actually not using this. Yeah, I think it's probably okay to use a default value here, in which case we can skip. And this we can probably just do into yep, that's fine. And yep. Now let's run this test again. I need to be out soon. I started quite late today, so that kind of affected things because I felt really kind of exhausted and I wanted to chill a little bit. I felt like I deserved this sleep because I've been working a lot. All right, looks a bit better. We gain all those nice stuff, and we have the directory there. What else? So what error we gain now? It's panicking on line 161. Config 161. Actually think this is not a great idea. 161 though. Failed to sign in. Why? Sign in with username and password. Let's run it again. Let's comment that out. default thread is not implemented for let's leave that for now. Let's leave that for now. I think we could just specify that actually. What we could do is pretty much take this and use it here instead, but let's see what we get first. Thinking we could just put that here, bam bam. Okay. Why am I not getting the logs? You know what? Verbosity, let's remove that first. What level is the default? 3. So see if that's affecting it. I'm trying to get the login out of it. It's gonna take a while. Rust Analyzer is running. While it's running, we can so now it's probably okay to use default shape, but we'll leave that still in the meantime. That let's see what we get here. There was a problem with authentication. Authentication is failing. Why are you failing? That is interesting. So pass the runtime config. Yeah, I mean that's a very helpful error message, isn't it? Failed to sign in. There was a problem with authentication. Like, what's the problem? The username missing. There's a password missing. There's username here. The database is specified. The namespace is specified. The URL is in memory. So what is the problem? You can't just tell me there's a problem without telling me exactly what the problem is. Why don't we hard code that? You know what? And that's a different place. We are not even able to sign in at all. So we're going to username. Let's run it again. But at least I think we have the setup quite good to as a foundation for our tests. I really hope and wish I can write more tests or even finish everything when I'm back. The nice thing is once we have this test, the first one running, it's very easy to get others going. So let's just check what we're getting with this. Test panicked at 170. I guess we need to figure out why. Because actually I just updated the database drive. I'm not sure if that could be a factor. Do we need to do sign up now? Is there like a, oh, how did I guess that? How did I guess that? Sign up didn't exist before. So how would this fit into the whole workflow? Or how does it work? Email password, that's weird. Sign up. Oh, that's a different thing. Or that is weird. That's a user. Sign up a user. So it shouldn't be that. Why does it fail? Do we need to? Anyway, I'm probably gonna have to come back and figure this out. I need to go real quick. I think we've made really good progress today, and we've made our code more testable. As you can see, for init, we're able to programmatically set a lot of things. We're able to use a temporary directory from which we can read and assert if things are going well. We're able to set our runtime configuration, our shared configuration, and set our migration directory and our init configuration, and then we're able to programmatically call our command. So basically what we're gonna do is figure out why the authentication is not working, then test for different cases. If you've got different versions of resources, maybe something has changed your code base, what's that gonna look like? Test for different configurational changes, and I think we're on a good trajectory. So I'll just put a work in progress here. Tests ongoing. Init test ongoing. And I'll have to end this stream soon because I have to be out, and I'm actually supposed to be at my destination in about 20 minutes, so I have little time because I still need to dress up a little bit. Thanks as always for always joining in the stream. I might continue these when I'm back if I still got some energy, but I'll try to start a bit earlier tomorrow. I went to the gym this morning and I kind of got tired also from coming back from the gym. I thought that was gonna give me more strength. It did, but after I felt a little bit I needed to relax because I've not been sleeping a lot. So I'm excited for what we've built thus far. We're on a good trajectory. We're gonna finish up the test and gonna have like a couple of tiny changes that I think could be done in 30 minutes. Then we're ready for alpha, maybe do a couple of refactoring. And now we're supporting SurrealDB first, but the plan is to support like SQLite, support Postgres, MySQL, and even other graph and NoSQL databases, Cassandra, um, Arango, Cassandra, which is like basically Scala, and what else? I mean, just support any database possible. Maybe MongoDB also. I actually did create a tiny ORM for MongoDB last year, so I might incorporate that into this also. I'm excited. We've got a lot coming. Thanks again for joining, and I'll try to be back today or tomorrow. See you guys again. I love you all. Keep breathing code. I'm Code Breeder. We're Code Breeder. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep building the world. I love you all. Stay safe, stay happy, stay cheerful, stay careful, and well, stay kind. Yeah, good night, good morning, good afternoon. I need to end the stream now.